have with us in the studio none other than Sirisha Voruganti, who is the Managing Director of JCPenney and an Executive Council member of the AMCHA, AMCHAM. She has over 31 years of global executive experience spanning across research labs, product engineering, strategy, mergers and acquisitions, business development, and consulting across public and private sectors. And we are honored to have her here join us today, where she is going to be talking to us about reasons you are not succeeding. Sirisha, welcome to the Payal Nanjiani podcast. It is such an honor to have you here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I have not even read, a lot of your bio. I know there is so much of accomplishments. You've also done an executive program from the Harvard. Am I right?
That's right.
Wow. So you have this entire diverse experience in so many industries that I read. You've done your executive program from the Harvard Business School. Tell us, what was the thought process of you moving into these different industries? It's not easy, and it's not something we see often.
Oh, yeah, I guess. So I started off as a scientist, with the defense labs many years ago, and I was there for a substantial period of time, primarily working on, these such systems, right? So whether it is the navigation units or the mission computing units, for the early missile programs that we had, and then for the light combat aircraft, creating what's called an integrated mission computer for the LCA, and today that's what's called Pages. These were, I think, an exposure into system design. And I kind of hold that really close, because over the years, if you look at things that I have done, it's really about creating those, designing and working on those end-to-end product. And most of my experience has been around that, whether we worked at creating India's, first low-cost phone platform, again, an end-to-end system that we tried to put together, or what we tried to do with respect to doing hardware, software co-design, and trying to design the chipsets for, say, mobile telephony or whatever that was. And then I ventured into the financial services world, right? Again, we're talking about whether it's a payment experience that we're talking about, or whether we're talking about processing, or whether we're talking about, architecting systems. Most of it has been around that. So that's my passion. I worked with startups as well. I still do work very, very closely with quite a few of them. So I think it's really about these developing and delivering systems from India. That's been my passion from the beginning. And most of it has been around that. Of course, there are a few things that you need to learn, I think, and continuously learn as you're kind of refining your skills, when you start looking at things from the top of the house. So that's where these other programs have actually helped in terms of just understand business a little better, and, being able to, create and work through businesses and so on and so forth. But I think it's more about, understanding everything to do with system design. And that's what my 31 years has really been around.
Wow. So how scary, or, how was it to just keep moving through different industries? Because like you said, when you're looking at success, and you and I were speaking earlier also, you had this overview about success. And I wanted to know, when you're moving industries, a lot of us, we worry, we like to stick to a plan. We feel, okay, this is exactly how we should move ahead. How was it for you? What was the experience like? I should say, what was the feeling like? Was it scary? Was it something you were just confident about? How was it?
No, I feel very good about the fact that in the connected world, it's extremely important that you understand some of the systems. So it's no longer just about, say, a payment thing, right? When we talk about, say, connected commerce, it's really everything to do with understanding customer behavior, to understanding payment processing, to understanding some of the newer technologies, and the not just the geographical differences that there could be. So it's really end to end. And connected commerce, I think, brings multiple industries together. And that's what the and helped me with. So when I worked on mobile devices, at the end of the day, we're doing every transaction on a mobile device today. So it actually helps to understand some of that. Or understanding data, to me, it's not just about, I worked in the financial services space, but if I look at auto today, right, a car to me is nothing but a data center in itself, right? So whether it is connected commerce, whether it's connected car, whether it's connected healthcare, I do see a sort of thread that connects across these industries. And that's where I think, dabbling into some of these has actually helped understand those end-to-end experiences a lot better in my particular case. And I'd like to believe that.
So you were confident that this, like you took this, all these moves as a learning. So you were confident that in the process you will learn. You were not afraid of losing what you already knew to gain something new.
Yes, absolutely. And what always motivates me is about the newer things that you can do in each of these sectors and segments, right? So if you and the innovative quotient that there is, we at some point had used things like gamification, for creating a saving habit in children in the banking world. Now I see gamification can be used across multiple sectors again. I mean, whether it is in the connected stadium context that you're working on, thing else, that a retailer is trying to provide, as somebody is waiting, you'd kind of like to gamify the entire experience of use or coming to a coffee shop, perhaps, right, where you're saying from where's the coffee bean coming and all of that, so that you create that customer stickiness. The way I look at it, and today it's easy for me to say because I look at it from the top of the house, and when I look back, I think it's all connected. But to really plan ahead for it, I know is hard, but I think it's all these experiences that one gains through many of these industries, I think, do really help you put it all together. And in today's world, I think everything is connected. So I think it's a lot more easier today to plan that journey than it was for me as many years back, because we didn't have as much devices or as much happening on these devices back then, right?
That is so true. The generation we are in right now has so much of information available as compared to the generation that you and I am. Not like we both are from the old generation, but yet things have moved on very quickly in the technology field. So Sirisha, would you define yourself as a person who loves to set high goals and achieve them?
More than high goals and achieve them, I think it's really about creating a goal for yourself and making those small milestones that you can achieve, and then try to celebrate those little. I had never ever, when I kind of started off, never really thought of moving or, being in the financial services space or now in retail, right? Because the way I started in this, in defense and the government, it was very hard to look as much ahead, in time. Or when I was doing a couple of startups, and had gone on to become an entrepreneur at some point, it's very hard to kind of plan too much ahead. I do understand, but I think it's important to have, a certain goal for yourself in terms of you would like to see yourself, but then split those into really small milestones which are achievable. And it's also very, very important, I think, in this journey to kind of celebrate those little milestones that you can, you kind of tend to achieve, right? Because otherwise it's a long, arduous journey and it's never easy. And I'm sure at many points in time, each one of us would have thought, well, we've had enough of this and we can't go on anymore. But I think it's just that at those points, it's important to look back and see and look at all the things that you've achieved and then say, yeah, I can go another step. And, and I think those successes give you that the strength to move forward.
I think that's so wonderfully put, Sirisha, that, you just made goal achievements and setting the goals and just achieving them sound so simple, and the way you have chunked it down, I think that's awesome. And
it's also important, just one more thing, I think it's also important to celebrate through all of that.
Yeah.
And I think celebrating failure is super important, is very important for one's own self, because as I said, there are these periods of lows where you say, oh, I've not gotten to that end point. But
Yeah.
then, you should probably realize that early on so that you can make a switch in path, and say, maybe this is not the way to get there, but, you need to do something else. So I think it's also important to do that.
Absolutely. I think celebration is one thing we've so forgotten. In fact, I think in one of my books, I don't know which one, I think it was the first one, where there's a chapter dedicated to celebrate and how we need to take that pause. Like you said, it's those small, small achievements, those small steps that you need to just wait there, have some fun there, and move ahead. And that is so
Absolutely.
forgotten in the corporate world. We are so target oriented, moving one goal to another, one target to another. We tend to forget this major aspect. So thank you so much, Sirisha, for actually pointing this out in a big way. And coming from you, I think it can mean so much to everybody. So I think that's an awesome point to touch. Um, just sticking with the goals, like you said. So, what are some of the reasons, like we're talking about the reasons that people are not succeeding? What are some of the reasons that you feel people do not succeed in achieving their goals? Because we all, like you said, we all have something to look forward to, something to achieve. But many of us, we leave the corporate world feeling so unfulfilled. What's that reason that so many of us, and like you pointed out, Sirisha, it's a world of information. Still, there is this gap.
So, well, I keep stating this. One, there's the Sanskrit saying which says "Krishito nasti durbhiksha." You
Oh,
don't
what does
even
that
get
mean?
arms if
Wow.
you don't even get arms if you don't work hard, right? So even if you
Yeah,
have to
so
go
true.
go get diksha, you really have to slog that
Mhm.
out. And there are no shortcuts to success in the corporate world as well. I've seen a lot of people give up in time because you've probably failed in an initiative or two. But I think it's that resilience and resolve which is extremely important in terms of what is that end goal and objective one has. But there are a few things that I would like to suggest to all the listeners, right? And I believe this concept, and so I'm actually talking about it. As you go through your journey, I think it's extremely important to focus on what are called the 5 C's. The first one being competency, right? I think you should have that back pocket skill, and you should constantly be upskilling yourself with the latest technologies or whatever that is, right, in your domain, that you're working on. And you should, at some point, try to be that go-to person for that one particular skill on the floor, or wherever that is. I think that's important because the moment you're dated, now people stop coming to you. So I think you should, if you have to up your game all the time, you
Mm.
should constantly be up and building that competency and learning these newer technology areas and being able to talk through them, and
Yeah.
being able to master, as you go through your journey.
Mm.
The second thing I think, which is very, very important, is courage and confidence. And a lot of times on
Courage.
all
Yeah.
these 5 C's, we have to help ourselves. Nobody is going to help us. They might
True.
act as sounding boards and things like that, but I think we have to help ourselves in terms of, having the courage and the confidence to be able to speak up, one, for yourself, and as you go through the journey for your team, because I think it's extremely important that organizational success is actually team success. It's not so much just about the individual. So you should be able to, stand up for your team, and the team should have, you should have their back all the time. So I think the courage and confidence aspect is so very important for you to be, that representative that's able to talk for the team, in every scenario. So courage and confidence to me becomes the second most important
Mm.
thing. The
Mm.
third is communication. It's that focused a lot on both verbal as well as written communication, and so that you're able to again put forth your view in a manner that the other side is able to receive them well. And this is important if there is a new technology that you're proposing and you need to talk to a board, or you need to talk to your team, or you need to talk to somebody in the organization and convince them. Communication is extremely important, and so focusing on that constantly, I
Mm.
think, is superlatively important as you go through the journey. And the last one to me, which I think is extremely important, important, and I wouldn't want to compromise on that, is your compass, and the fact that your compass should point to the true north, which is your integrity as you kind of build your own career. So these five to me are extremely important, and I'll just repeat them
Yeah,
again.
please.
It's
I was going to tell you to
competency
please repeat them.
and so competency is the first one, courage and confidence as 2 and 3, and then you have communication is, and your compass is 5. Now there is a story that comes to my mind, and you must have seen this elephant, and tied to a small peg with a
Uh-huh.
rope when
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
young, and the elephant keeps moving back and around that peg when it
Yeah,
is tiny.
yeah.
And somewhere it believes that it can't break that rope, right? And so it keeps, it just keeps moving back and forth. As the elephant grows and becomes this majestic animal, they still tie the elephant with one tiny peg and a very tiny rope. It
Uh-huh.
takes a minute for that elephant to actually pull the peg and the rope.
True.
But what happens is the elephant still believes it can't break it because it's in its head, and it keeps just moving back and forth around that peg. So I think a lot of us over time have become like that, where we feel we're scared to think about these big goals and large objectives for ourselves, and even in our dreams, say, well, I want to become the CEO of the company, and then work towards that, right? Because at some level you need to have a plan, and there are a ton of things that
Yeah.
you need to do to go achieve that plan and objective. So I think we who have this fear in our head, and we just don't break that shackle. And so that's where I was saying people have to help themselves. There is an ecosystem that can support them as they're thinking through their journeys. But I think it's so important for us to believe that we can do it, right? And I think we have so many examples of people that have come in. I mean, have kind of broken those myths of that they can't achieve something, and actually going there and finishing tops, right? And
True.
there's up to number of examples just in our own country, I think, of people that have done that.
No, I think you're so correct. And even when you started this off, like when you were talking about the reasons before the 5 C's, you also mentioned, Sirisha, about that you have to have resilience, and you also have to be someone who can keep going in the game, right?
Yes.
Generation in which we are, the workforce generation in which we are, and the culture in which we magnify success, quick success. So everybody wants to quickly move ahead. Everybody wants those quick numbers on their followers. They want, to achieve things more quickly. As compared to what I'm hearing from you, it was a complete journey of 31 years. It was not an overnight. It was not quick. Where are you seeing this in our corporate world? Because you are leading diverse teams across, and you have led in the past also. What would you say about this concept that you're seeing, or are you seeing it, or are you not seeing this? Maybe that would be the first question.
Well, I don't say you have to wait 31 years for success, because I think today's day and age, it's all about digitization of society. Everybody is looking for quick gratification and quick results. Startups, I think, in India and across the world have actually proven that, in terms of people becoming billionaires and in their early 30s and so on. So I don't want to say you have to wait as long to kind of see success, but definitely the traits that I spoke about in terms of resiliency, in terms of that failing fast, in terms of that changing strategy and things like that, I think are super important. But I do have a word of caution for many of them that look for instant. In terms of, you just have maybe a one Mark Zuckerberg, and there are a ton of others who are kind of, slogging their way through it. I think it's important to kind of pace yourself. It's important to kind of, work on your areas of your company as you kind of build your own careers. There are just a handful of those superstars across the globe. And of course, we can aspire to become one of them. But I think there are a ton of other areas that people need to work on in terms of finding those, opportunity gaps, and then creating solutions to quickly tap into those opportunity gaps that there are, right? Because again, if the opportunity windows are small, And if you have a certain solution, getting that to market really quick and then building on those successes is extremely important. But I think, all the other traits are definitely required to kind of gain success in any domain and field.
Love that, Sirisha. And before this podcast, when you and I connected, you also touched upon technology as one of your big domains. So now that the business has tilted towards technology and metaverse and metaworld that we are hearing about, how is this changing the game, and how could people be more successful in this change of business era?
So I think, in all of these, areas, it's very important for us to keep a pace with technology because that has today entered, every aspect of our life. Understanding customer pain points is extremely important. And I'll talk about one thing that we've seen in India. It's a small innovation and a small change in culture. And I think it has caught on so one is these whole fast tags that we have right at every toll gate. Earlier, we used to kind of wait at a toll gate, and you had to take out your change and pay it, to the guy at the booth. And every car doing
I
that,
remember
it was
that. Yes.
huge amount of time that we were spending. It could be a
I've
minute
seen
or
that
two
change in India when I came. Yeah.
for every vendor. And today you have fast tags and you can actually drive past them. So the saving that you have, and if you drive from point A to point B with, say, 10 toll gates, you actually save quite a lot of time as you get to your end destination. And today the wait times are almost negligible. So I think, it's a little change to we were doing things, but I think that's kind of caught on so well. So technology in every sphere of what we're doing. India is really known for payments. You look at EI, you look at the number of transactions that are happening there. I think billions of transactions that we're going through, and digital payments has kind of brought down fraud in this country substantially. Transferring now to accounts, to phone numbers and direct debits that are happening, and direct credits that are happening to accounts. So all the middlemen have gone out in the process. So all I'm saying is, every domain and area that we're in is so much of technological movement, right? And I think important as we kind of progress. And you talked about metaverse, and you talked about the number of use cases that we have. I mean, if I look at, my mom's 82 years old, and it's extremely difficult, as I see, for them to move to technology or, to all these newer areas. Going to a bank and going through a transaction is difficult, but maybe some of these technologies can actually help get the bank to them, right? So you can sit at home and then still talk to an agent in the, using these aspects of technology where you're taking banking to the senior citizens, the country. I think there are many such interesting use cases that you can work on where you actually create better customer experiences. So I think today's day and age, that's what technology is doing. It's kind of helping improve experiences. It's actually reducing fraud in our systems and so on. And it's just, at the end of the day, I think it's just making life easier and at a lower cost, I guess, for consumers. I mean, when the whole Ola and how that's transformed and revolutionized the transportation system, we've seen that in our nation. And there are so many such examples of how technology has actually enabled, evening of life and existence.
Correct.
And I think that'll continue to go on, right? So
yes. And I have been transitioning a whole lot this year and the past year between India and my home in the US. And I so agree with what you say, Sirisha. I am seeing these technology changes here in India, whether it is with the money transactions, whether it's at the toll booths, like you said, and it's just moving so fast, and it's easing out everybody's life. So that's a wonderful thing that you pointed out. Amongst all the things that you have said about why we are not succeeding, and the reasons what we could do to succeed also, Sirisha, what would be your top advice to people in the corporate world who want to succeed? What are some of the things you would tell them?
Well, I think the first one, positive attitude. because it's all in the mind. And I think it's always good to come back into work, all refreshed and trying to solve the next problem you have. So I think the positive attitude is extremely, extremely, important. Second, all success, one needs to believe it's all about team success. And so how you enable your own team and the team members to be able to create something that is path breaking. I think that's very important. So you need to be a team player, and I think it's relatively important. They'll probably be one of Elon Musk's, but then a lot of us, I think, really need to work in teams and ensure we and the teams succeed together. I think the last goal is, as you kind of work through, is you're actually solving a customer pain point, particular issue, which is topmost on my mind as you go through your journey. And it could be in any of the domains that you're on. It could, if you're in the auto segment, or, how you're just making the life of the driver a lot more easier in those vehicles, right? So I think it's extremely important. To me, those are the three things. So have a very positive to your work and to what you're doing. Ensure you're an absolute team player as you go through the journey. And third, of course, ensure you're solving a key problem that customers have, which is top of mind for them.
I think we're just, we get so consumed by the day-to-day work in our daily agenda, we forget about focusing on the customer problem. We are just like taking the work, getting it done, and then moving ahead. And we feel that solving customer problem is someone else's job in the company, maybe at the top, or maybe the salesperson. But this is so aptly put. And I think amongst all the things that we need for success, putting our focus on the customer at whatever level we are operating in the company is so imperative. So that was a great point out, Sirisha. We are on that part of that segment of our podcast, which is called the Leadership Rapid Fire. Okay. So this is a place where I will ask you, where is it here? This is a place where I will ask you some one-liner, like a question, and whatever comes to your mind, at the top of your mind, I just want you to blurt that out.
Sure. I'll try.
So, okay, here we go with the rapid leadership fire. The biggest leadership myth you've ever heard?
That leaders know everything. I don't think leaders know everything. I think a leader is one that's willing to learn and that's willing to work with the team and, believe it's all team success. So leaders knowing everything, to me, is that myth.
Yeah, and then I think just by hearing this myth every time, we have taken so much pressure on ourselves.
Absolutely.
That we've got to know it all. So, one thing that motivates you to get out of bed every morning?
Well, I think for me, it's just my passion for work and the fact that I love what I do. And just to be that probably helps me bring my whole self to work every day, many years. So yeah, I think you should love what you're doing. That's super important.
So here I want to ask you something, Sirisha. Did you fall into the work, or did you fall in love with the work, or were you already in love with what you were doing? And that's how it just moved on.
I mean, it was both of them together. So I just love what I'm doing, and I think I build on it quite a bit. So yeah.
Fantastic. What is your favorite part of being a leader?
Well, I think there are two things. One is really making stuff happen. Taking a problem and then solving for that problem, and I think really making it happen, and you kind of release it to customers and get that early feedback from customers. To me, that I think is extremely, extremely important. The second thing, and that's what that a greater satisfaction that one has as one rises through his career, is making careers, right? I think and enabling careers. So that gives me immense satisfaction too, because at the end of the day, kind of either mentoring with people and ensuring, that people are being successful, people around you is successful, which I think is, extremely important as you grow as leaders, because that's a big responsibility
Mm,
that,
it
you would
is.
have as a leader. It's not just on success and everything about yourself, but it's really about what you're doing and how you're giving back and paying it forward.
Mm. You're such a people person, Sirisha. I can just get that
I
vibe.
am. I am.
That's so good. The superpower you would choose, invisibility or mind reading?
Man, I don't know. I think it's more mind reading again.
Okay.
From a concept of one. I mean, either understanding a
Mhm.
pain point that somebody has and able to solve
Yeah,
for that. I'd love to be able to do that time and again, so that we create
true.
the right products that the market. You're not creating, something else. But
Yeah,
I would also use that in organizational context, where I'd love to understand the issues that
mhm.
employees have, even before they talk about it, and then solve for it so
Yeah.
that you can create happy workplaces.
Very, very right, very true. And I think as leaders, that becomes so imperative in our work, to understand people and to actually know what is it in their mind that we could help. I think it's all about wanting to
Yes,
help. That's why we want to know exactly what's going on.
yes, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
your biggest leadership pet peeve.
Well, leadership is actually self-serving. I think that's something that needs to be busted. To me,
Yeah.
leadership is all about servant leadership.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's about the humility that you get to your workplace, and it's about what you
True.
can do for people.
Very
So I think leadership is a huge responsibility, and that's why you don't have too many leaders
Yeah,
that you really want to look up to and
I
emulate,
agree.
because it's not
I
easy
agree. There's a
yourself.
shortage of it. There's a shortage of it. And that's why we have people like you on the podcast who can really come and share so much for others to learn. So thank you. If
Thank
you
you.
could travel back in time and change one thing about the corporate world, what would that be?
Well, there are actually a couple of things I think I would do. One is to bring in more boardroom transparency. I think that is not high,
Yeah.
in many organizations, for the entire organization to rally behind you. So, boardroom transparency. The second is good governance. I think, again, that's extremely important for organizations. So, it's not, again, creating opportunities, for people across the globe, providing those seats at the table and ensuring, you have very good governance around most of what you're doing. And the third is creating a people first organization. So to me, all these three are extremely important, and it's not just one of them. And I think organizations focus on one or two of them, and miss out on a few of these. But I would believe great organizations are where you have great people who really understand the strategy and where the company is going. And I think that's very important to me.
Wow, I'm so glad we had someone like you on the podcast, Sirisha. You've really brought in the perspectives from various different angles, and your entire experience across industries is so visible in your thought process. So, thank you so much for doing this and taking out the time to come here. And I know how busy your schedule is. So, thanks for taking out the time and being here as a part of our podcast and sharing your insights.
Hey, it was wonderful being with you, and yeah, really look forward to having conversations in the future. Thank you for
That's
having me.
amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. And this is for our listeners. This is Sirisha and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless.